Hello everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tail Crafts. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be creating two A7 pop-up staircase cards using some of the new stamp sets from our latest Harvest Blessings collection. Here I'm showing you all 4 stamp sets because I will have another video coming out soon showcasing the slimline pop-up staircase where I will use the other 2 stamps. But for today's video, I'm going to be using the Horsing Around 6x8 stamp and the Spider Witch 6x6 stamp. For all 4 stamp sets, I went ahead and stamped out every image because at the time I filmed this, I was creating those card samples for the showcase, so you might recognize some of these horses on a different card. I will be using 3 out of the 5 for today's card, and the other 2 I used for a pop-up barn, which I will have a pop-up barn tutorial coming up very soon. But I love this stamp set. It's called Horsing Around, which is very cute, and there's a lot of fun, like punny sentiments that can work beyond fall. Like there's one that says, "I heard you're feeling a little bit hoarse, get well soon, howdy." So there's also a happy birthday stamp in there. So this is definitely more of a year-round stamp set, but it works perfectly with the barn. And I know that there's some extreme horse lovers out there, so I really wanted to create a set that was just horses, and my grandma helped illustrate these. The only horse that I drew was the colt, and I asked her to create some horses in motion. So I love this horse that's running, and it reminded me of the movie Spirit. So that is how I'm going to color this horse. And these are nice sized images, so I am using 4 Copic markers for each horse. You saw in the beginning I Copic colored the white horse at the bottom. I am speeding through this because I want the focus to be on the pop-up, but these horses were just so pretty and fun to color. I had to share a little bit of the coloring. And so Spirit has a brown body and then a black mane, tail, and hoofs. I am going to bring in the black into the brown just a little bit so that it's a easier, or I guess a more blended transition. And this one ended up being my favorite. I like the horses with 2 tones. And as I was looking up, references, I was surprised by how many horses had a different color mane and tail. So I did that with the Spirit horse, and then the one that's laying down is brown with a blonde mane. But again, a lot of these horses are in motion, so you can create some really cool scenes with them. I like the one that's jumping. There's also a saddle that will fit on 3 of the 5 horses. So I am going to use that white, brown, and gray horse for my card today. I'm also going to use this Spider Witch 6x6 stamp set, which is my favorite from the release. I drew her, and I love the style of this illustration. The hair is so fun to color. So I'm starting out with her skin, and I wanted to give her pale skin, but also in a pink tone, because I knew I was going to give her purple hair. So I thought that the pink skin tone would really complement the hair. And I'm also going to give her makeup because her eyes are super detailed, and I think it lends itself to a little bit of eyeshadow. And she also has black lipstick, which is super cute. So here I'm doing the hair. I'm going to try my best to describe what I'm doing. When it comes to Copic coloring, I always tend to flick with my markers because it's easier to blend them. But especially with hair, I am taking a conscious effort to create those strokes, and I don't want them like super close together. I want some strokes that are longer, some that are shorter, so that you can create the look of strands of hair. So I started out with my darkest marker, and then I'm gonna go to my lightest, and I think I use 3 markers here. You can definitely do 4 and get more contrast, but I chose specifically a very dark shadow color and then a very light highlight color. I find that if you have those stark shadows and highlights, you're gonna get that look of hair strands because it's not gonna blend as much. So you're going to maintain those strokes, which I really like. So I did give her purple hair. I thought she was a trendy witch, and I'm glad that I went that route because I end up making the background purple and it just blended in really nice. I'm going to give her green eyes. I added a little bit of purple to her lipstick. And then for her hat and her shirt, I'm going to color that in black. I am starting with the black Copic marker and just mapping out my shadow areas. I heard from artists all the time that you shouldn't use black when you're coloring in a black image because you could lose your highlights. But because this image is so big, I felt like adding the black would add that nice contrast, but I used it very sparingly. So then I went in with C10 and then C8 and C6, and then my highlight color is C4, and I barely again use that C4 because I do want it to look like a black hat, but I want it to appear rounded. So by adding that stark black and the C4, that is what's going to create that rounded look on the hat. So the whole hat is going to be black, and then I'll give her a yellow buckle. And by the time I finished her outfit, I kind of felt like she looked like a pilgrim witch, but it was still ended up being really cute. In this set, you also get two nice size sentiments that say if you say witch like it's a bad thing. If the shoe fits, get the matching hat and broom, which I think is really cute. It's not your typical sentiments you would put on a card, but they fit the witch so well. And I also gave her spiders because she is a spider witch. So I'm going to use all of the spiders, and I'm going to use that web on the card, on the slimline card, which you'll see in an upcoming video. So I ended up using every image from this stamp. And if you're new to alcohol markers or really any coloring medium, this image is a very nice size to get some practice in, especially with the hair and clothing. She's really fun to color. So I am gonna go in with a white gel pen. I don't always do this with my images, but if there is fur or hair, I do like to add those white highlights to it. So here you can see I have all of my stamped images die cut, and I also have plain white die cuts that I can add behind the stamped and colored images just to add a little bit of dimension. There I just showed you the spiderweb hot foil cover plate that I thought would work really nice with the spider witch. I had purple foil that matched her hair, but I felt like it would have been too much purple, and I will probably recreate another card with her using black foil whenever I can find black foil. It seems to be out of stock everywhere. Anyway, like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm going to be using the A7 pop-up staircase along with some of the pattern paper from our Happy Haunting 6x6 paper pad. I'm going to cut the base from that paper, and you might have noticed that I overhung the top of it. It's because I just want the part that's going to be showing. So I didn't need to cut up the whole paper just to create the base. I'm going to actually use just plain heavyweight black cardstock for the base and glue the stripe paper on top. You'll see what I'm talking about later on. But I did cut two heavyweight black card bases, all of those little tabs that you need to pop up your images, and then I cut 6 of those long bridges that will actually pop up everything onto the tabs. I also cut the cover plate from the new Witch Hill A7 cover plate. You can see that it cuts a frame with a spider web at the top and a cemetery at the bottom. I'm not going to use the cemetery, but I will use the spider frame. But first I'm going to layer this up with 3 layers of heavyweight black cardstock. Whenever I am making my card samples, I do layer up my cards because I plan on bringing these to trade shows, so I know they're going to be handled a lot. I want them to be sturdy. And I'm also, at the time, before I go to the trade shows, I'm displaying these in my house. So I want them to be pretty substantial pieces. That is typically why I always layer up my elements. So I'm going to show you now how to assemble the staircase. I'm going to start by reinforcing all of the score lines on each of the 2 bases. So I'm folding them all down. And using my fingers, I'm just going to create a nice crease. You can use a bone folder if you want. I do suggest heavyweight cardstock because this is going to hold up your entire card. And this is a nice beginner-friendly pop-up, very easy to put together, and it still allows you to create a flat card design. It just adds a little bit of dimension. So it's a nice kind of, I would say, gateway die into the pop-up card making world. So I'm giving those all a really nice crease. And then I will bring in both pieces, and on one of the bases, I'm going to glue up each of those tabs. So I'm going to use a combination of ATG tape and liquid glue. The ATG tape provides me with an instant bond, and the glue provides me with a permanent bond. So I do like to use both. The glue also gives me a little bit of wiggle room. I'm also going to add my tape to each of the tabs. So there is a score line right below them. You're going to add your tape above the score line on each of the tabs. Then I'm going to fold up the second base and then meet those tabs together. And then I like to do one step at a time just to make sure everything's lined up and, butted up right against each other. And that's it. That is the completed assembly of the staircase. And then all you need to do is add your tabs onto each of the staircases. Before I do that, I do want to cover the black with this striped pattern paper. You can cut the whole base from this paper. It's actually a pretty nice weight, but I wanted to conserve as much of this paper as possible, so I just went ahead and cut the front part. And I'm also going to use that 1-inch strip that I just cut off, because you can see when this pop-up folds flat, it actually moves upwards, and you're going to see that 1-inch flap at the bottom. So I will add my stripe piece there so that it's a continuous stripe. Now I'm going to work on the background of my card. So I have some Distress Oxide inks in Seedless Preserves, Dusty Concord, and Black Soot. Now I started with the Seedless Preserves on a pinky purple cardstock. The Copic markers I chose for her hair were more of a violet purple, so there were some pink undertones. So I thought starting with a pink paper would be nice. And Seedless Preserves, as you can see, is also a pinky purpley color. But as I was applying the Dusty Concord, I felt like I wasn't getting enough contrast, and it also was still looking too pink. So you can see I'm going to add my witch, and I felt, yeah, I need some deeper purples. However, I do not have any deeper purples. All I'm going to say is if you have Villainous Potion, I think that would be the perfect color. I'm very behind on the new Distress colors. I need to stock up on them. But you can create your own purples using blue. So I added Chipped Sapphire to the edges, and because I'm blending over purple and over the pink cardstock, it's going to automatically turn into a purple, but it's going to be a bluish purple, and it's going to give me more contrast. I'm also going to add Black Soot. I love adding Black Soot to Halloween skies because it adds so much drama and it really darkens the card panel. So I went ahead, added the Black Soot, and now I'm going to go back to my lightest color. So I'm going over it again with the Chipped Sapphire. And if you're seeing that it's too blue, just go over it with purple again. So now I'm going in with my Dusty Concord and then the Seedless Preserves. Now I did end up covering the pink cardstock completely because I was a little bit rough-handed with the Seedless Preserves, but you can maintain that pink in the center. I think that would be really pretty, and then that would give you a 5th color. So I like how that looks. I'm just going to add a tiny bit more Black Soot to the edges, and then my blending is complete. I am going to add some silver ink splatters in the background just to add a little bit of interest. This watercolor I'm using is very watered down. This is Gonzai Tombi Silver Shimmer watercolor. And I added a lot of water so that my splatters would not be super stark. You're gonna see as I splatter them, they instantly blend into the background, and it almost just looks like water splatters, but when you tilt it in the light, you'll see that shimmer. See, I just showed you. It's really pretty and subtle. All right, so now I'm going to cut off that cemetery, and on one of my cards from the product showcase video, I used the cemetery to pop up on my staircase, but for today I'm going to use all of the stamped spiders. I'm going to go ahead and glue that frame. Now, as you can see, there is a blank space at the bottom, which is fine because that is where your staircase is going to go. So I'm going to glue my witch to the right side so that you can see most of her outfit. I felt like gluing her in the middle, it was going to cover her up too much. Plus there was that web on the left corner. So to me, she looked the best on the right. Now you can see she is overhanging. So this card cannot fit in an envelope, but you can glue her further down if you want her to fit in an envelope. So I'm going to glue down my staircase with a lot of liquid glue. I was very generous, and I'm poking my fingers through the holes on the staircase to make sure that's nicely adhered. And then I will add my little spiders coming off the spider web at the top. I thought that cover plate was perfect for these dangling spiders. And then here I have the sentiment. This sentiment is from the Witch's Brew stamp set. I felt like the ones included in the Spider Witch set was a little bit too big, so I chose this one and I ended up going with the black. I felt like the black blended in with the paper more and it wasn't as stark. I really wanted the focus to be on the witch. And now I'm going to show you how to create the tabs. So I'm taking one of the bridges. Like I said, I cut 6 of them. I don't end up using all 6, but I have them for another card. I fold the middle score line and then the 2 score lines at the very ends of the bridge. Those create tabs. And on either side, I'm adding glue to the tabs, and I ran my bridge through the slit of my rectangle, and then I flattened it to create this standing up piece. I don't know if I explained that to its greatest potential, but it's very, I feel, self-explanatory once you watch me do it. They are basically like game board pieces or paper doll stands, and they allow you to pop your images up on the staircase. So here I'm going to add a spider. I thought about using a die cut spider, but they didn't stand out enough. I like that the stamped images had a white border, so they popped off the background more. Here I'm creating another stick, just sliding in my bridge through the slit, gluing down the tabs, and then gluing the whole rectangle onto the staircase. Again, I would suggest heavyweight cardstock for these bridges. Here you can see you fold it in half, you fold the 2 tabs, add the bridge through the slit, attach the 2 tabs to the rectangle, and then attach the rectangle to the staircase. And you can trim them shorter if you want to use a smaller die. So that's what I did for that spider web in the corner. And then that's pretty much it. I'm going to add a couple gems from our new rhinestone mix. This mix, I have been getting questions, is not available for separate purchase, but for the winter release, we will have some more mixes. Because this was kind of like a last minute decision, we added them just to the card kits, but we will have rhinestones and pearls, hopefully for our winter release. So here's what I was talking about, that 1-inch strip. I'll go ahead and glue that. And then here you can see how the whole card folds flat. I am going to add a heavyweight white cardstock panel behind this, just so that it's nice and sturdy. And that completes the first card. And here's how it stands. I love that it can be displayed. All right, so now we're moving on to the horses. I have 2 heavyweight white card bases, and then I cut everything else from white, including the slitted tabs and the bridges. I'm also going to pull in the Everyday Border Set 2 to cut out some clouds and grass. I'm going to use the clouds as a stencil and the grass as a way of grounding my horses. So here I have my slimline cloud cut out. I'm going to use Faded Jeans Distress ink to ink blend my clouds, and I'll just shift the faux stencil down and slightly shift it left or right so that all the clouds are not stacked on top of each other the same way. And Faded Jeans is a pretty dark ink, but I like that it was a muted blue. It's not super bright, but because it is so dark, I am barely touching the paper with my blender brush. So I have a very light hand. And this is a great way to create a cloud stencil if you don't have one. I like that it's slimline so that I can shift the clouds, but you can definitely just use a regular cloud border for this. So I want to continue the cloud stenciling onto the staircase. So I have one of my bases here. I went ahead and folded the tabs, and just where the base is going to show, I'm going to add some more clouds. So I am using new products from our Harvest Blessings collection. If you haven't seen the product showcase video yet, I will link it down below. You can leave your comment on that video and enter yourself into the chance to win one of two $50 gift cards, but that video goes over all the new products, and I made tons more staircases. I also posted a product showcase blog post where I took pictures of all the cards I made, or most of the cards that I made, so you can check that out. I will have it linked. So I'm just going to trim off the excess of this grass, and then I can start to build my scene. I plan on using this white horse on the front of the staircase, and then I'm going to pop up the jumping horse. So I'm going to create my little bridges using the long bridge and the rectangle slit to create a little stand where I can glue my horse onto the step. So I went ahead and glued my white horse, and off camera I did layer all of my die cuts with my white die cuts that I cut out at the beginning of the video, just to add more stability and dimension to the horses. So here I'm going to glue down my first tab, and it's going to be hidden by the back legs of this horse. And this tab that's going to go behind the front legs was a little bit too wide, so I'm going to trim it a bit so that it's thinner, and that will go right behind the front hooves, I guess. And you don't have to add two, but because I added so many white die cuts behind this horse, I felt like the extra bridge was needed to keep him up. Now, I don't think that one is necessary if you just have the single stamped image that you're popping up. So then my little spirit horse is going to go directly onto the card panel. He is popped up with two white die cuts behind him, so he does pop off the panel really well. And same thing for this sentiment, which I added towards the top of the card. And I felt like something was missing, so I added these clouds from the new Countryside Slimline cover plate. I'm going to add two white die cuts behind them and add those to the background. And that just added a little bit of something, but it didn't distract from the scene. And then that will pretty much finish off this card. So like I said, there is a part 2. I will showcase the slimline pop-up staircase, then the pop-up barn, and then I will have my 10 card 1 kit videos for the 2 new card kits in this release. So far, the collection has gotten a really positive response. I'm so glad that you guys love the Halloween products as much as I do. Here I am adding another green strip to the bottom part of the staircase, and you can see where those 2 green pieces meet. So I'm taking a green Copic marker that matches pretty well with the cardstock that I used, and I'm just going to go over that line. It's going to slightly darken that area, but I don't mind it. I think it looks better than the white. So I went ahead and just went across the whole line. And it does dry back a little bit, so it's not super dark, but it is a little bit darker. All right, so again, I'm going to add a 5x7 white panel to the back of this just for more stability, and that will finish off my card. So here it is coming out of the envelope. This is how it folds flat, and then it just pops right up. I think this card is a great birthday card for horse lovers out there. And there's some great fall sentiments in this set as well. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you in the next video tutorial. Bye!